billions of dollars are spent spying on Americans, whether it's NSA or CIA or the FBI. And to make matters worse, we know that the CIA can take control remotely of a car's computer system in order to crash the car, take it off a bridge, or take control of your smart TV and turn the speaker into a microphone, even though the TV is off, and broadcast back to the CIA.
Can they do that with devices?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you how we know. There was a CIA software engineer who was disgruntled, and he downloaded tens of thousands of documents classified above top secret. And instead of going to the Russians or the Chinese, he went to WikiLeaks, and they became the Vault 7 documents. So our whole lives are out there, potentially, for someone to use against us. And every country has these capabilities. Listen, I spent 15 years in the CIA. I love this country. But one of the most important things in my life is the issue of ethics, which is why I blew the whistle on the CIA's torture program. Because my superiors kept repeating that torture worked. But besides being illegal, immoral, unethical, it just wasn't true. And I would let them send me to prison again because it was the right thing to do. I mean, we know that they were experimenting on American citizens and spreading diseases in American cities.
This is the stuff of movies.
It is.
And because you've been in this world that the average person really has no idea about, I have to ask you, who do you think is the real adversary of the West? What are you most concerned about in the world at the moment? And what about everything that's going on with Trump in Venezuela and Greenland? And then, do you think Jeffrey Epstein was a spy?
Yes.
Who do you think he was working for?
The Israelis.
Why? Listen, my team gave me a script that they asked me to read, but I'm just going to ask you in the nicest way I possibly can. Thank you first and foremost for choosing to subscribe to this channel. It's been one of the most incredible, crazy years of my life. I never could have imagined. I had so many dreams in my life, but this was not one of them. And the very fact that these conversations have resonated with you and you've given me so much feedback is something I will always be appreciative of. And I almost carry a weight, a sort of burden of responsibility to pay you back. And the favor I would like to ask from you today is to subscribe to the channel. If you would be so obliged, it's completely free to do that. Roughly about 47% of you that listen to this channel frequently currently don't subscribe to this channel. So if you're one of those people, please come and join us, hit the subscribe button. It's the single free thing you can do to make this channel better. And every subscriber sort of pays into this show and allows us to do things bigger and better and to push ourselves even more. And I will not let you down if you hit the subscribe button, I promise you. And if I do, please do unsubscribe, but I promise I won't. Thank you. John Kiriakou, the world knows your name. Why? Why does the world know your name?
I can give you two answers. One, I'm proud to say that I blew the whistle on the CIA's torture program in a nationally televised interview with ABC News. The second reason is I blew the whistle a long time ago, and just in the past 18 months, I seem to have hit some sort of YouTube algorithm sweet spot, and all of a sudden, my message is getting out there.
And you went to prison for blowing the whistle.
I did, and I would do it again tomorrow. I really would. You know, I was giving an interview to the BBC the day after I got out of prison. They were the first outlet to ask for an interview. And so I gladly gave it to them. And the interviewer said, kind of perturbedly, "You're not showing any remorse or contrition?" And I said, "No, I'm not remorseful. I'm not contrite. I would do it again. I would let them send me to prison again because it was the right thing to do."
And you were a spy in the CIA?
Yeah, I was quite an accomplished spy in the CIA. I spent 15 years in the CIA. The first half of my career was in analysis, and I got bored, frankly. And so I made an unusual, at the time, change to counterterrorism operations. And then I was the chief of CIA counterterrorism operations in Pakistan after the 9/11 attacks.
And if I'd never heard about the CIA before, and I had never heard about your role in the CIA before, and I was a 16-year-old.
Right.
How would you explain to me what you did there, what your role was, and what the CIA is?
Sure. The CIA is an intelligence service whose job it is, at its most basic level, to recruit spies to steal secrets and to analyze those secrets so that the policymakers can make the best informed policy. After 9/11, we were expecting an attack, to use Osama bin Laden's words, that would dwarf 9/11. And so my job was to infiltrate Al-Qaeda by recruiting members of Al-Qaeda to tell us when and where that next attack was going to come so that we could disrupt it, we could kill or capture the leadership, and destroy the organization.
And give me a range of the things that you did during your time in the CIA, just for a very top-line range of the types of things you worked on.
Oh, sure. As an analyst, it was actually quite straightforward. We would write for the president, the vice president, the secretaries of state and defense, and the national security advisor.
And who were the presidents during that time?
When I started, it was George H.W. Bush, the father. And then it was Bill Clinton, then George W. Bush. There are several different publications. There's the President's Daily Brief, which is the most important. I covered Iraq the entire time that I was in analysis, from well before most Americans had ever heard of Iraq. I was told actually that it was a training account because nothing ever happened there, nothing ever changed, and then Iraq invaded Kuwait. The next day, I got to the office early. I was 25 years old, 26 years old, and my boss said, "Don't take your jacket off, we're going to the White House." I had never been to the White House before, except as a tourist. And so we got in a car, went to the White House, we're ushered into the Oval Office. It's the president, the vice president, the national security advisor, the director of the CIA, my boss, and me. And then we all sit down. The president tells us, sit down. We sit down and the president says, "Well, now what do we do?" And everybody turns and looks at me. And it took me a second. And I said, yes. I said, "Mr. President, as you know, Iraqi troops crossed the border at 2:00 this morning. The royal family has run away to Saudi Arabia. They've named a new occupation governor, et cetera, et cetera. Do we know who that is?" I said, "Yes, sir." I gave him the name. And I said, "Actually, he's the co-founder of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine." The vice president shouts, "Jesus Christ!" And then the president says, "Gentlemen, thank you. We'll take it from here." And I remember saying to myself, my friends would never believe in 1,000 years what I was doing right now. They wouldn't even believe me if I told them. That's what an analyst does. When I switched to operations, again, the job was very straightforward. It was to recruit spies to steal secrets. But then if you're involved in counterterrorism operations, there are a lot of extras that you have to be trained in. So you go through the normal spy training. This is how you ingratiate yourself. It's something called the asset acquisition cycle. Spot, assess, develop, recruit. I meet you at a cocktail party. You seem like a nice guy. I introduce myself. I ask, "So what do you do for a living?" Well, if you tell me you manage a shoe store, I'm going to say, "Well, it was very nice meeting you." And I'm going to go on to the next guy. But if you tell me you work at the port, you work in the Ministry of Defense, you work in the Chinese embassy, I'm going to invite you to lunch. I've spotted you, I've assessed you, and my assessment is, I'd like to get to know you. Then I begin to develop you. I'll give you an example. I was in Pakistan. I got a tip that Al-Qaeda, a group of mid-level Al-Qaeda fighters, was meeting every single day in a coffee shop at 10 o'clock in the morning. My Arabic was absolutely flawless at the time. And so I had a bushy beard that I grew for operational reasons.
Can I hear some of your Arabic?
Yeah. Tasharraf b'mariftak. It's nice to meet you. Or Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah, Malik Yumadin, Rahman ar-Rahim. So I bought an Arabic newspaper and I went to the coffee shop and I just sat there. And sure enough, at 10 o'clock, the four of them came in. One of them looked at me and I looked at him, and that was it. We made eye contact. I did that for a week. The second week, I was there drinking my coffee, sitting with my Arabic newspaper, and the one who had looked at me the week before, he nodded. So I nodded back. That was it. No communication otherwise. The third week, I'm a regular now. He recognizes me. So he says to me, "Salamu alaikum." I said, "Wa alaikum assalam. May peace be upon you." And I say, "And upon you peace." One day, he came in alone. And I said, Tafaddal, please have a seat. Sit with me. No sense in you sitting alone and me sitting alone. So he sat down. We started talking. And I asked him how long he had been in Pakistan. He said, I've been here for 5 years. I was in Afghanistan. I was making jihad against the Americans. And I said, that must have been hell on earth. He said that the bombing of Tora Bora was hideous. That was the word that he used. It was hideous. And I said, and what about your family? How's your family? He said, my wife and son and daughter are in Cairo. I've never met my son. He was born just after I left to make jihad. I said, I'm so sorry. And he said, yes, I'm lonely and I want to go home. And we continued this relationship. And finally I said to him, let me take you to dinner. Let's get out of the coffee shop. The truth was I didn't want one of his friends to walk in and see us. So we went to a restaurant for dinner. And I said, listen, there's something that I haven't been truthful with you about. I'm not Lebanese. And I said, and actually, I'm American. Are you okay with that? And he says, I think so. I said, well, actually, I'm a CIA officer. And he says, okay. So he didn't run screaming from the room or pull a gun or anything. And he said, why do you want me? Why do you want to talk to me? I said, actually, you have access to something that I want. It was very specific, and I told him what it was. And he says, and what will you do for me? And I said, anything your heart desires. And he said, I want to go home. I said, I can do that.
You wanted information, presumably.
I wanted information, very specific information.
Which you can't share.
No, I'll go right back to prison. So, we got him a passport. I bought him a first-class ticket. And I took him to the airport, gave him some cash to get himself started again. And I said, before you go, I have to ask you, why did you agree to give me this information? I mean, presumably I'm the enemy. And he said, I've been here 5 years, and you're the first person who ever asked me about my family. So I said, best of luck. Never saw him again. That's the job.
I have to ask you, take me on the journey of you being a young man in West Pennsylvania.
Right.
To becoming a spy. What happened? Because I'll be honest, I don't really know what my perception of spies is, but it's not you.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. See, because I kind of work under the radar.
So what's really interesting is there's so many, once you learn about spies as a podcast, like, so if you go back a couple of years and someone had told me about spies, I wouldn't have believed them. I wouldn't have believed that these things actually happened.
Yeah.
You hear about people going undercover and going to other countries and getting secrets and all of these things. And it's not until you meet the people that said, yes, that's me, I used to do that, that you have this paradigm shift in your mind and you go, oh my God, what else might be going on?
Right.
Because I lived in this world probably up until the age of, 30 years old, where I kind of just assume things are what they are, like as I see them. And then, you start to discover that there's layers of secrecy, nations are against each other, they're doing all of these covert operations. And even like as a podcaster now, I have moments where I go, like, how do I know that you're not here to steal secrets from me?
Right.
So, what's funny? When I had Andrew Bustamante on the show, the comment sections are always the same. They're always like, once a CIA spy, always a CIA spy.
I hate when people say that.
It's like,
so intellectually lazy.
But I do wonder, and I go, okay, here's a super conspiracy theory. What if the CIA have made spies do really well in the YouTube algorithm so that all of us as long-form podcasters invite them on, and then they...
You know what? I would agree with that. I would have agreed with that a year ago because Andrew Bustamante has really made a handsome living out of selling his experience. Yeah. And he's on every podcast.
Yeah.
But I am the most anti-CIA, former CIA person that's out there.
But wouldn't that be the perfect CIA agent?
I mean, if I weren't constantly criticizing the CIA as an organization that's just out of control.
Do you think the CIA have a strategy for podcasters and for podcasting?
I think, yes, now they do. It took them a little while to get current, but just like they, over time, developed a strategy with Hollywood, sure, they're developing a strategy with podcasters. You know, it was only in the last 10 years that the CIA opened a branch within the Office of Public Affairs whose job it is solely to liaise with Hollywood studios. The FBI's been doing this since the 40s. And the goal is that everything that comes out of Hollywood should be pro-CIA. And, you know, we end up with Zero Dark 30 and, you know, The Recruit and the CIA, Argo. The CIA is always the hero in these movies.
If you were still at the CIA now.
Whenever you feel sad or mad or nervous or out of control, write down what you're thinking. And then ask yourself, is it true? Is it absolutely true? How do I feel when I have this thought? How do I act when I have this thought? And what's the outcome of the thought? And then turn it to the opposite. How would I feel if I didn't have the thought? How would I act if I didn't have the thought? What's the outcome of not having that thought? Write down 100 of your worst thoughts. Take them through that process. And by the time you get to 30, they'll stop bothering you.
And your job was to infiltrate and use creators or podcasters as an asset for the CIA's objectives. How might you design that plan if we were just hypothesizing?
You would have to have a goal that would be specific enough that you could actually track the progress to it. So you can't just say, well, I'm going to pay this podcaster X amount of money and we're going to do something with the algorithm to make him vastly popular among men, 18 to 30, let's say. There's got to be more to it than that. It has to be a message. You've got to be able to get a specific, well-honed message out there. And the message can be anything. It could be, love the CIA, we're the good guys. It could be support the overthrow of the Iranian government. It could be, any criticism of Benjamin Netanyahu is anti-Semitism. It could be anything you want it to be. You just have to make sure that it's repeated enough. See, this was the danger with the torture program. This is one of the very important reasons that I went public when I did, because my colleagues, my superiors at the CIA kept repeating this lie over and over and over again that torture worked and that torture got us information that saved American lives. And that was just simply not true. It was a lie. Besides being illegal, immoral, unethical, it just wasn't true. And so I decided, before we go down this road anymore, I'm going to go public.
So can you take me back then? We got a little bit sidetracked there, but
Sure.
John, how did you come to be a CIA spy?
When I was 9 years old, I told my parents that I wanted to be a spy when I grew up. It came time to apply for college, and I only applied at one university, George Washington University in Washington, because it was 2 blocks from the White House, and it was one of only 3 schools in America that offered a Middle Eastern Studies program. I was one of only 4 people in that brand new Middle Eastern Studies program. I stayed for a master's degree in legislative affairs with a focus on foreign policy analysis. I was taking a class in that program called The Psychology of Leadership. It was taught by an eminent psychiatrist named Dr. Gerald Post. And he gave us an assignment one day where we had to shadow our bosses. We had to just follow our bosses for a week.
Your bosses?
Yeah, I worked at a labor union called the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. And so we were just supposed to follow our boss around for a week and then write a psychological profile. I used dozens of, footnotes from psychology texts. And I ended up saying that he was a sociopath with psychopathic and possibly violent tendencies. And, I had these citations. I passed the paper in Dr. Post gives it back to me a week later, gave me an A, and then he wrote, "Please see me after class." So I went up to him after the class and I said, "Dr. Post, you wanted to see me?" He says, "Come to my office." So we went down there, he closed the door and he says, "Listen, I'm not really a professor here. I'm a CIA officer undercover as a professor here. And I'm looking for people who would fit into the CIA's culture. I think you would fit into the CIA's culture. Would you like to be a spy?" And I said, "Yes, I would." He picked up the phone and called a number and he said, "Bob, this is Jerry. I've got a good one for you. Do you have some time?" And he said, "Sure." He writes an address on a scrap of paper and he says, "Be at this address in 20 minutes. It was only one subway stop away. So I jumped on the metro. I went to Roslyn, Virginia, just across the river. I had to buzz to be let in. And a woman opens the door. She says, "Are you here for Bob?" And I said, "Yes." She says, "Come on in." I'm sitting there for a moment. And then this 6'6", 350-pound giant barrels out of his office. And he says, "John, Bob, how the hell are you? I want you to be at the George Washington University Medical School Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. We've got some tests for you." I said, "Okay." And then we shook hands and I left. So Saturday morning, I went to the GW Medical School auditorium. There were 200 people there, and they handed us a test. My wife picked me up. She said, "How did you do?" I said, "I have no idea."
Does your wife at this point know that you're applying for the CIA?
Yes, and that was going to be pretty much the extent of what she ended up knowing. Because once I got in...
But you were allowed to tell her?
I was not allowed to tell her, no.
So you told her anyway?
Yeah. When I first applied, they said, "Listen, don't tell anybody because you may go undercover, you may go under deep cover, and we can't have people out there who know that you're a CIA officer."
Presumably the CIA are smart enough to be able to check if you've told her.
Yeah. And they ask you on the polygraph, "Did you tell her?"
Really?
And I said, "Yeah, I told her. She's my wife. What am I going to do?" But it got to the point where I'd get home from a day where, I broke into some guy's house and planted a camera on a bug, and I'd get home and she'd say, "How's your day?" I'd say, "Great." "What'd you do?" "Not a darn thing." And then my phone would ring at, midnight and a guy would say, "The rain in Spain falls mainly in the plain." And I'd say, "Mares eat oats and does eat oats and little lambs eat ivy." And that means meet me at the yacht club parking lot in 3 hours. And then I'd leave. She would say, where are you going? It's midnight." "I gotta work." So I'd leave, I'd do my meeting, I'd come home, 6 o'clock in the morning, just in time to shower and shave and get dressed to go to work. And she would say, "What was her name?" And I remember this one terrible time. That's what she said to me. "What was her name?" The truth is, I had been sitting in a garbage dumpster, waiting for a guy to drive by down the alley and throw a bag of documents in. And I stunk of garbage. And I said to her, "Do I seriously smell to you like I've been with a woman?" Seriously. So we ended up getting a divorce.
So you do the assessment, presumably you get in, and then you do training?
He called me 2 weeks later. Bob did. And he said, "You blew the doors off those tests." I said, "Oh, great. Okay." So a month later, they summoned me to headquarters. And I was interviewed by the Office of Near Eastern Operations, the Office of Near Eastern Analysis, and the Office of Leadership Analysis. I was offered the analysis job on the Iraq desk.
And what is the sum total of the training you were given in the variety of different roles that you had? How do they train a spy?
That's a good question. And the answer is vastly different depending on where you start your career. Okay. So because I started mine in analysis, the immediate training was in mastering the CIA's writing style. So the most important product that the CIA writes every day is the PDB, the President's Daily Brief.
And it tells the president what?
What you think he needs to know.
Okay.
So for example, when the Iraqis began moving to the Kuwaiti border, we had this big debate Are they gonna cross the border? Yes or no? So I said, listen, why don't I call the American Defense Attaché in Baghdad? And I'll just ask him to drive down there and look. And
I remember telling one of my close friends, I said, we were riding bikes somewhere. And I just out of the blue, I don't know why it hit me. I turned to him and I said, you're one of those friends that if I was really in the shit, I would call you. And his reaction is he didn't say thank you. He said, I'd be mad if you didn't. But the reason I bring it up is it's the same in a relationship, which is when you don't call me and ask me for help, when you don't call me and say I need to cry, when you don't call me and say I'm in the mud, you deny me the opportunity, the joy, the honor of sitting in the mud with you.
just tell us what he sees. He drives down there, drives back, he calls me and he says, literally the entire Iraqi military is on its way to the Kuwaiti border. So we wrote a thing for the president saying Iraq is going to invade Kuwait and it's probably going to happen in the next 48 hours.
And when did the president see that particular briefing?
At 7 a.m. the next morning.
Okay. And is there ever situations where the president would get it in the middle of the night?
Yes. Yeah.
And be told in the middle of the night that?
Yes. There are these levels of immediacy. There's routine, which is like, who cares? And then there is priority, which means, I'll get to it sometime today. Then there's immediate, which means you should probably read it first. But then there's flash, which means, oh my God, something terrible just happened. You should probably wake the president. And then there's critic, which means they're coming over the embassy walls. We're at war. Wake up the president, scramble the jets.
9/11.
9/11. Mm-hmm. That's a critic.
So going back to this question of your training.
Yeah.
What is it that the CIA teach you about human nature and how to use human nature to your advantage that could be transferable to other disciplines in life like business or...
Well, this is going to sound not very nice, but it's real life. It's everyday life, especially in business. The CIA actively seeks to hire people who have what they call sociopathic tendencies. Not sociopaths. Sociopaths have no conscience. They'll just blow right through a polygraph exam. But they're impossible to corral. They're impossible to keep under rein. And it's because they're not able, their brains won't allow them to feel regret or remorse. Now, in business, most CEOs are sociopaths. Most, not all, but most, especially in big companies, because they claw their way to the top, usually on the backs of the people around them. They don't feel bad screwing the next guy to get that next promotion. The CIA wants people like that because those are the people who are going to break into a foreign embassy. A normal person would not advocate breaking into a foreign embassy. That's sovereign territory of a foreign country. I would. I'd be glad to do it.
Why?
Because we're the good guys.
So do you have sociopathic tendencies?
Absolutely.
And what are your sociopathic tendencies?
My sociopathic tendency was to operate in legal, moral, and ethical gray areas. Specifically, that's what it was.
I'm really curious about what we can learn about human nature from someone whose job was to meet strangers and to get them to basically, sometimes, to turn against their own country. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm really interested in, and I think it's informative because so many of us, when we think about what good leadership is or what good sales man or womanship is, it seems like there's transferables. I guess for some people it's family. I guess for some people it's something else. That hook that you're talking about, that thing that gets them.
And the word that they use at the CIA for the hook is a vulnerability. And it's not really a vulnerability in every case. Now, 95%, studies have been done about this internally at the CIA, 95% of the people who agree to become spies for us do it for the money, right? It's a simple cash transaction. You give me money, I'll give you secrets. 95%.
So you telling me that you think human motivation is 95% driven by money?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. The rest was love and family, ideology, revenge, and excitement. You're going to get a handful of people who are hooked on James Bond movies, and they will do it. I mean, you're going to pay them anyway, but they will do it just for the adrenaline rush.
It's interesting because when I look at this list of things and I compare it to business, I would say it's slightly different from my experience of hiring people, specifically of hiring people. I tend to think that, one would ask themselves, like, why would someone leave a company right now like, I don't know, OpenAI and go work at a startup? They're going to get paid way more at OpenAI. You've got this equity and these grants, but people are en masse doing that. And even when I think about the early days of Google, people left the big conglomerates that would pay them more, and they went and worked for Larry and Sergey, getting paid way less,
right?
But to be involved in something small, scrappy, exciting. And this is what I think about when I sit, probably I've had thousands of people in my life now across my businesses. And money is a factor, but it doesn't tend to be the biggest factor. It tends to be, in my experience, there's a particular hero's journey in their mind that they want to be seen through. They want to complete. There's a particular way that they see themselves and they want to fulfill that.
Oh, I could get that. I work with a very, very tiny startup right now called Ivy Cyber. And it focuses on privacy software, things like, scrambling your data so it can't be intercepted, that sort of thing. And I've participated in a couple of pitches to angel investors. And they all say exactly the same thing that you did.
And this is why I was confused when I heard that money was 95%, because I just think, especially in the work that especially in the work that you do, I would assume.
But look at it this way. I think this would explain the discrepancy. You're comparing people who are making a life versus people who are betraying their country.
True. And what's interesting as well is in those examples that you've given, money is actually a proxy to be able to take care of my family and to be able to, fulfill my ideology. And maybe to get excitement and revenge. Do you know what I'm saying? So even
Absolutely,
that guy that wanted the plane ticket so he could fly home, he could have, the money could have got him home if you just given him. But the reason why he wanted to go home was because his family.
That was it.
What's the extent of the things that the CIA can get as a incentive for someone to turn against their nation to give secrets?
Quite literally anything you can imagine.
Even if it's against the law?
Well, they're not going to get like drugs or child prostitutes or not stuff like that.
What if someone said, I want you to get me a green card?
Oh, yeah, sure.
What if they said...
If the information's good enough, not a problem.
What if they said, I want you to...
When we lie, our bodies get very weak. Stick your arm out.
Yeah.
And hold it up. Don't let me push it down, okay?
Don't let me push it down.
Yeah. Okay, got that. Now, I want you to do that while lying. And the lie I'd like you to say is, I love to vomit.
I love to vomit.
Say it holding your arm up.
Yeah.
Say it.
I love to vomit. Why? That's so weird.
Now say, I love fresh air.
I love fresh air.
Now, I'm trying my very hard. Let's say it again.
I love fresh air.
Now say, I love to vomit.
I love to vomit. Why is that? That's so strange.
This is why polygraph machines work on everybody with psychopaths, because the body lives in reality. The body is honest. Only the mind, and only the verbal mind, can lie to us and tell us things that we can believe, even though they're not true. I love to vomit is a statement that says it's okay for me to feel horrible. But a smaller version of this is I often speak to groups, and I'll stop right in the middle of the speech and say, is everyone comfortable? And they'll say, yes. And no, really, truly, are you genuinely comfortable? Are you really comfortable? And they say, yes, go on with your speech. If you were at home alone right now, how many of you would be in exactly the position you're in at this moment? Nobody raises a hand. And then I say, why not? And they have to sit and think for a long time before someone finally says, I'm not completely comfortable this way. What concerns me and should concern you is that 30 seconds ago, you swore to me in broad daylight that you were absolutely comfortable. Well, you knew you weren't. Your body knew you weren't comfortable, and your mind was doing this little trick where it goes very quickly through this. Okay, in order to listen to speeches, we sit in uncomfortable positions, and that's okay because it's worth the benefit we get out of it. So given that, I am tolerably comfortable. But all you think is, I'm comfortable. People come to me and they're in jobs where they're not comfortable, in relationships where they're sometimes in intense suffering. They think they're comfortable, but they're getting sick. They're getting physically sick because they're trying to numb the discomfort they won't acknowledge. When you know it makes you suffer, you're getting accurate information from your entire neurological system, what's working for you and what isn't, and what would be better, what would be more comfortable, just a little bit.
I've got this tax bill. I want you to make the tax bill go away.
Okay. Give me the plans to that Russian tank. We'll make it happen.
What if it was an American? Would they speak to the IRS here and just get rid of it?
Oh, if it was an American citizen, you mean?
Yeah.
No.
But why?
No. We normally don't recruit American citizens. By law, the CIA can't operate domestically, although they have offices all over the country. Those offices are generally to debrief business leaders, C-suite officers who travel to denied areas. For example, if you take a trip to North Korea, let's say, I'm going to call you and I'm going to say, you don't know me, but I'm from the CIA and I understand you just went to North Korea and I was wondering if I could come over to your office for an hour and just ask you about your trip. 99.99% are going to say yes because they're patriots. So I go to your office, I give you my business card, and we just chat about, your impressions of the place and that kind of thing.
Just to close off on this point, are there any skills that the CIA taught you or trained you in that you think are transferable for business that we haven't talked about?
They trained us also in lying and lie detection. That was actually quite important. At the CIA, you're a trained liar. And this is why the divorce rate's so high. It's the highest divorce rate of any entity in the US government. It's upwards of 80%.
Trained to lie?
Uh-huh.
How do they train you to lie?
Hi, my name is Dave Phillips. I work for an import-export company.
But do they teach you the art of lying?
Oh, yeah.
And what is the art?
It's hard to pin down. You just sort of have to have it. You have to have that ability. But the hard part is you have to keep the lies straight. I'll give you another example. I've never told this story before. I was asked by headquarters. I was overseas in the Middle East, and I was asked by headquarters to target one specific officer of this foreign country.
Target?
Yeah. Hi, how are you?
Okay.
Oh, we've never met. I'm John. So nice to meet you. Let me take you to lunch. He had access to information that we really needed. So they told me to accidentally bump into him. So I surveilled him for a week. And he was single. And on Saturday morning, he went to a coffee shop. So I go into the coffee shop and I'm looking at him and he's looking at me and I said, I know you. Ministry of Foreign Affairs? He said, yes. Do I know you? I said, I am John from the American Embassy. Oh, nice to see you. I said, hey, good to see you too. You live in the area? Yes, I do. I said, oh, so do I. I didn't. I lived across town. Oh, fancy meeting you here at this coffee shop. I come here all the time. Do you? Yeah, he says, I come here all the time. Why don't you have a seat, he says. So I sit down. At the end of the conversation, I go back to the embassy and I read a cable and I said, he's gay. I'm 100% sure he's gay. So then we started this conversation, headquarters and I, how can we use that to our benefit?
Did he have a wife?
No.
He was single?
Which was unusual at his age.
How did you know he was gay?
Oh, it was a vibe.
Okay.
So headquarters says, we want you to pretend that you're gay. I said, oh, come on, you guys. No, we really need the information. You got to pretend that you're gay. I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it for Uncle Sam. So I call him and I said, hey, I have 2 tickets to this show and I was hoping maybe you'd be free. Maybe we'll grab some sushi afterwards. He said, yeah, I'd love to. So we go to the show. He thoroughly enjoyed it. And we go for sushi afterwards. And then we go out again. And he says, why don't you come over to my place some night and I'll make dinner. I said, great. So I go over to his place. He made a lovely dinner. And then I thought, well, I have to invite him to my place. So I told my wife, you're going to have to get out. So she left. I made dinner. I removed all the pictures of us together. And we had just gotten married. So we had our wedding picture up and everything. At the dinner, he leaned in to kiss me. And I instinctively backed off. And he said, oh my God, I'm sorry. I thought you're gay. And I said, oh no, I am gay. I'm not into hairy guys. And he's like, oh, okay. I said, I'm sorry. I think you're great, but I'm not feeling it.
You didn't kiss him?
No. So we remained friends. And in the end, he gave me the information because we were friends. And then he opened up. He's like, I can't tell anybody I'm gay. They suspect I am. And they passed me over for promotion. And my boss asked me, is there something in your personal life that you're not telling me? He knows I'm gay. I said, listen, your culture's backwards. Don't tell them you're gay. Just say that you've just never met the right woman. And inshallah, the right woman is coming, in your life at some point. And I actually Googled him a couple of years ago and he did become an ambassador finally.
And he's still working in that country now?
Mm-hmm.
Does that kind of stuff happen a lot in the CIA where you have to take one for the team?
Yes.
Have you ever taken one for the team?
No.
I'm not sure you're telling the truth.
Well, it came close.
When did it come close?
So I was overseas. I was a brand new operations officer. And there was a woman in this foreign intelligence service who was the ugliest woman I've ever seen in my life. You want to avert your eyes. She came off the side of Notre Dame. She was a stone gargoyle with a giant mole right here with a giant hair coming out of it. That kind of ugly. So I took her to lunch and she was very nice. And then I thought I did something kind of gutsy by CIA standards because it was early on in our relationship. I invited her to go to lunch on a Saturday. Now, as a rule, the people in this country were not allowed to socialize with us privately. It had to be their whole office, or several of them together. So I asked her just to meet me privately for lunch on Saturday. Don't tell anybody.
So she was someone from the Middle East?
Yes. And she agreed. And I was like, oh my God. She said yes. And I ran back to the office. I was like, she said yes to a lunch on Saturday alone. And my boss says, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to fuck her. And I said, what? I said, have you ever seen her? And he said, I know, but we're the good guys and you're going to have to take one for the team. And I go, oh my God, I go, okay, I'll do it. And he says, no, you're not gonna fuck her. We don't do that. I said, well, I don't know. I just started this. I've never been an operations guy before. How am I supposed to know? He said, come on. He said, just develop her like a normal person. You don't have to fuck her. I said, oh my God, you almost gave me a heart attack.
But they might not be mad if you did.
So long as I reported it and I got the recruitment out of it.
It wasn't illegal to sleep with assets.
Yeah, you're not supposed to sleep with assets. It has happened to a couple people I know. And they end up being pulled back to the United States. You have to sit in the penalty box if you do that. You're not supposed to do that. But yeah, it happens sometimes.
So sextortion isn't a real thing?
It can be. When I first got hired, one of the old timers told me the story about an Ayatollah that they were trying to recruit. And they set this Ayatollah up with a prostitute. And he had sex with this prostitute.
If you are awake from the hours of 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. for 2 hours between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. for 2 days per week for 25 days of the year, you qualify as a kind of card-carrying shift worker, and you likely have significant circadian disruption.
Which means that I have...
You are at risk for some of the, and it's not going to happen tomorrow, but if you continue on that pattern that I just described, you are putting yourself at increased risk for cancer and cardiovascular disease, metabolic dysfunction. You can have trouble having children. It impacts fertility, mental health, psychiatric disorders. There isn't a disease or disorder that circadian disruption doesn't touch. We just have to understand that our relationship to light will directly influence the trajectory of our health. There's just no question about that.
In a room where they had cameras everywhere. And so they bumped him afterwards. They bumped into him and said, hey, we have all these pictures. And they laid out the pictures of him, butt naked with this prostitute. And he said, yeah, give me that one an 8x10. Give me 2 5x7s of that one. How about some wallet size for this? He's like, get out of here. And he said, after that, we just stopped doing that. It doesn't work. When you recruit somebody, you really do need the relationship to be based on mutual trust.
Not coercion or pressure or
threatening
threats.
Somebody, it's not going to result in a productive relationship. The Russians do it, the Israelis do it, but most intelligence services around the world don't.
Because you've been in this world, what is it that you know about the nature of the reality that we all live in that the average person really has no idea about? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, going back to what I said earlier, 3 years ago, before I started doing all this podcast stuff and started interviewing people that had been involved in spy work and the CIA and all this, I was kind of like naive to the way that the world worked. I thought if I have a password on my device is secure. And I thought that,
Right.
all these kind of just simple things. But what is it that you know about the nature of reality that most people don't?
Well, I guess it's a couple of things. John Kennedy called the CIA the best and the brightest. And we're not. We're just average people. And we're not as smart as we think we are. We're not as worldly as we think we are. We've pretty much missed every major global development since 1947, from the rise of the Berlin Wall to the fall of the Berlin Wall to the fall of the Soviet Union to the Suez Crisis and the Iran hostage crisis and 9/11 and everything else. We missed it. We're really good at day-to-day, updates for the president. We're really good at recruiting minor hangers-on around terrorist groups, but the big picture items, we're just not good at it, number one. Number two, until 9/11, it was against the law, like in stone, to spy on Americans. And now, billions of dollars are spent spying on Americans, whether it's NSA or CIA or FBI or intelligence community contractors. Nothing is secret. Nothing. And to make matters worse, let's say maybe you did do something that law enforcement might be interested in. They don't need a warrant anymore. They don't need to go to a judge and say, well, we have reason to believe, blah, blah, blah. All they have to do is just buy your metadata because it's for sale. Just go to the carrier. Just buy it. They don't need a judge's order to do that. It's all out there. We've made ourselves vulnerable. All of our lives are out there, whether it's on Facebook or X or Insta or whatever. If they really want to get you, they're going to get you, which reminds me of a book written by Dr. Harvey Silverglate. He's a professor of law at Harvard, and it's called 3 Felonies a Day. And he argues in this book that we are so over-criminalized, so over-regulated in this country that the average American on the average day going about his or her normal business commits 3 felonies. Every day. You may not mean to, but you do, every day. So if they decide they want you, they don't like your politics, they can get your metadata, they can go through that metadata, find crimes that they can charge you with, and ruin your life. And there's nothing you can do to protect yourself.
To some extent, they did that to you.
Yeah, they did. They did that to me.
Because you spoke out about a torture program that was happening in the CIA.
Yeah, John Brennan wrote a letter to Eric Holder and said, charge him with espionage. And Holder wrote back. Eric Holder was the Attorney General. Holder wrote back and said, my people